I worked as a night cleaner in Seoul's biggest hospital for 3 years, but I never expected saving a dying patient would get me fired for being too qualified. What started as mopping floors became exposing an entire system's blind spots. The emergency room at Seoul National University Hospital buzzed with controlled chaos at 2 a.m. Machines beeped frantically as Dr. Kim Hyun-woo led his team around a coding patient. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the sterile white walls where I pushed my cleaning cart, trying to stay invisible. "Blood pressure dropping fast," shouted Nurse Park, her voice tight with panic. Dr. Kim's hands moved quickly across the monitors, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Increase the epinephrine drip. Where's cardiothoracic?" "They're in surgery, won't be here for 20 minutes, replied Dr. Choi, the resident whose usually confident demeanor had cracked under pressure. I paused my mopping, watching the patient's lips turn blue. The monitors showed a pattern I recognized immediately, something the team was missing in their rushed response. "His oxygen saturation is critical," Dr. Kim muttered, adjusting the ventilator settings. "Nothing's working." The patient's body convulsed slightly, and the heart monitor's rhythm became increasingly erratic. 3 years of watching these corridors at night, 3 years of staying quiet while working around medical emergencies, 3 years of keeping my mouth shut. But not tonight. "Doctor," I said quietly, setting down my mop. "The patient has tension pneumothorax." Dr. Kim's head snapped up, his eyes widening as he looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time. The cleaning uniform, the dark skin, the mop bucket beside me. "What did you just say?" "His left lung has collapsed. You can see the tracheal deviation if you look carefully. The air is trapped in his pleural space, compressing his heart." The room fell silent, except for the patient's labored breathing and the urgent beeping of machines. Nurse Park stared at me with her mouth slightly open, while Dr. Choi looked between me and Dr. Kim with obvious confusion. "You're a cleaner," Dr. Kim said slowly, his voice carrying disbelief rather than dismissal. "Yes, but right now I'm watching a man die from something easily treatable." I stepped closer to the bed, pointing to the patient's neck. "See how his neck veins are distended? His trachea is shifted to the right. Classic signs." Dr. Kim followed my gaze, and I watched the recognition dawn in his eyes. He quickly palpated the patient's neck, checked the positioning I'd indicated, then looked back at me with something between shock and respect. "He needs immediate needle decompression," I continued calmly. "Second intercostal space, mid-clavicular line, left side." Without hesitation, Dr. Kim grabbed a large gauge needle from the emergency cart. "Nurse Park, prep for needle thoracostomy." "Sir, should we wait for cardiothoracic to confirm?" Dr. Choi began. "No time," Dr. Kim interrupted, positioning the needle exactly where I'd indicated. "If he's right, this patient dies in the next 2 minutes." The needle slid into the patient's chest with a distinct hiss of escaping air. Almost immediately, the monitors began stabilizing. The patient's color improved, his breathing became less labored, and the heart rhythm settled into a normal pattern. The emergency room erupted in relieved chatter, but Dr. Kim stood frozen, staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Pride mixed with confusion, gratitude shadowed by something deeper. "How did you?" he started to ask, but the moment was shattered by heavy footsteps approaching rapidly. "What's going on here?" Hospital Administrator Dr. Lee Sung-min's voice cut through the room like ice. Behind him walked 2 security guards, their presence immediately changing the atmosphere from medical celebration to administrative crisis. Nurse Park quickly busied herself with the now stable patient, while Dr. Choi suddenly found urgent paperwork to review. The life I just helped save seemed forgotten as institutional protocols took over. "I received a report about unauthorized medical intervention," Dr. Lee continued, his gaze fixed on me with obvious displeasure. "Someone called security about a cleaner practicing medicine?" Dr. Kim straightened his shoulders, positioning himself slightly between Dr. Lee and me. "Administrator Lee, this man just saved a patient's life." "That's not the point, Dr. Kim," Dr. Lee replied sharply, adjusting his expensive glasses with obvious irritation. "We have protocols, licenses, legal liability. You can't just let random staff members—" "Random?" I interrupted gently, my voice calm despite the growing tension. "I understand your concern about protocols, Dr. Lee." Dr. Lee's eyebrows shot up at being addressed directly. "You understand? You're a night cleaner who somehow thinks he can diagnose medical conditions. The security guards moved closer, but Dr. Kim held up a hand. Wait, let him explain. I looked around the room at the faces watching me. Some curious, others skeptical, a few openly hostile. 3 years of this. 3 years of being invisible, of watching medical mistakes I could prevent, of staying silent while my credentials gathered dust in a filing cabinet. I've been cleaning these floors for 3 years, I said slowly, watching, learning your systems, understanding how this hospital works. But tonight, watching a man die when I could help him, I couldn't stay quiet anymore. You're avoiding the question, Dr. Lee pressed, his tone growing more aggressive. What medical training could a cleaner possibly have? Dr. Kim stepped forward, something shifting in his expression. Actually, that's a good question. What is your background? Adebayo, I supplied. Adebayo Okafor. Dr. Okafor, Dr. Kim repeated thoughtfully, then paused. Wait, doctor? I nodded simply. Board-certified cardiologist, University of Lagos Medical School, fellowship in interventional cardiology at Imperial College London. The silence that followed was deafening. Dr. Choi's pen stopped moving across his chart. Nurse Park's busy work with the patient slowed to a crawl. Dr. Lee's confident expression began to crumble. That's impossible, Dr. Lee stammered. If you were a qualified physician, why would you be working as a cleaner? Because qualified physicians from Nigeria apparently aren't qualified enough for Korean hospitals, I replied without bitterness, just stating fact. I've applied for medical positions here for 3 years, submitted transcripts, certifications, recommendations from London colleagues. Every application was rejected. Dr. Kim was already pulling out his phone. Excuse me for a moment. He stepped aside, fingers flying across the screen as he searched for something. Even if that were true, Dr. Lee continued, you can't practice medicine without proper licensing in Korea. What you did tonight could result in serious legal consequences. What I did tonight, I said calmly, was watch a man's family almost lose their father because the medical team couldn't see past their assumptions about tension pneumothorax. Dr. Kim returned, his face pale as he stared at his phone screen. Dr. Adebayo Okafor, University of Lagos 2016, summa cum laude, fellowship at Imperial College London under Dr. Sarah Mitchell, published 12 papers on emergency cardiac interventions. He looked up at me with something approaching awe. You literally wrote the textbook chapter I studied on tension pneumothorax recognition. Dr. Lee snatched the phone, scanning the information with growing discomfort. This doesn't change the protocols. Hospital policy clearly states that we save lives first and handle paperwork second, Dr. Kim interrupted, his voice growing stronger. Which is exactly what Dr. Okafor did. He's not Dr. Okafor here, Dr. Lee snapped. He's employee 2847, night cleaning staff, and he violated every regulation we have about unauthorized medical practice. I watched the battle unfold between administrative policy and medical ethics, between institutional hierarchy and human decency. Dr. Kim stood straighter, his jaw set with determination I hadn't seen before. Then maybe our regulations are the problem, Dr. Kim said quietly. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Dr. Lee's face flushed red with anger and embarrassment. Dr. Kim, I strongly advise you to consider your position here before making statements you might regret. My position? Dr. Kim laughed, but there was no humor in it. My position is as a physician who just watched a colleague save a life while I was failing. My position is standing next to someone who's more qualified than half our attending staff, but can't get hired because his degree has the wrong geography on it. Nurse Park cleared her throat softly. The patient is stable and asking for his family. For a moment, everyone remembered why we were all here. A human life had been saved. A family wouldn't receive devastating news tonight. Someone's father was going home. But Dr. Lee's administrative mind couldn't process beyond policy violations. Security will escort Mr. Okafor out. I'll be conducting a full investigation into this incident. No, Dr. Kim said simply. Excuse me. I said no. You want to investigate? Start with why a world-class cardiologist has been mopping floors for 3 years while we desperately need specialists. Investigate why our hiring practices apparently filter out excellence based on passport color. Dr. Lee's face was now completely red. Dr. Kim, you're out of line. I'm exactly where I need to be. Dr. Kim replied, moving to stand directly beside me. "And if you want to fire someone for saving lives, you'll have to fire me too." If this story about hidden talent challenging prejudice is already hitting you in the feels, smash that subscribe button right now. Because what happens next will blow your mind. This conversation is about to get real, and you won't believe how it ends. Trust me. Stay for this. Dr. Lee looked around the room, realizing that everyone was watching this confrontation. Other staff members had gathered in the doorway, drawn by the raised voices and tension. Word was spreading quickly through the hospital's unofficial communication network. "This isn't over," Dr. Lee said stiffly. "There will be a formal review board meeting tomorrow morning. Both of you will be there." As he walked away with the security guards trailing behind, Dr. Kim turned to me with a mixture of admiration and determination in his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I'm sorry it took almost losing a patient for me to see what was right in front of me." "Don't apologize for the system," I replied. "Just help change it." Dr. Kim nodded slowly, something resolving in his expression. "Oh, I plan to. This hospital is about to learn some things about itself it might not want to hear." The patient's family arrived then, tearful and grateful, and I quietly slipped back to my cleaning cart while Dr. Kim explained what had happened. But as I resumed mopping the floors, I could feel something fundamental had shifted in the emergency room that night. Change was coming, whether the hospital was ready or not. The next morning, the hospital conference room buzzed with unusual tension. Word of the previous night's incident had spread beyond the medical staff to the patient's family, who had contacted local media about the miracle cleaner who saved their father's life. Dr. Lee sat at the head of the conference table, surrounded by board members and department heads, his confidence from the night before notably diminished. The morning newspapers lay spread across the table, with headlines like, "Hospital Cleaner Saves Life While Doctors Failed," and "Hidden Talent When Prejudice Nearly Costs Lives." "The situation has become complicated," Dr. Lee began carefully. "We need damage control." Dr. Kim entered the room with a thick folder under his arm, his expression calm but determined. Behind him, I walked in wearing my cleaning uniform, my head held high despite the stares. "Before we begin," Dr. Kim announced, "I think the board should see what I discovered last night." He opened the folder and began distributing copies of documents. "These are employment applications from Dr. Okafor, submitted over the past 3 years. Transcripts showing honors degrees, recommendations from internationally respected physicians, certification documentation." Board member Dr. Park Jung-hee picked up one of the applications, scanning it quickly. "These credentials are impressive." "More than impressive," Dr. Kim continued. "Dr. Okafor graduated top of his class from University of Lagos, completed his fellowship under Dr. Sarah Mitchell at Imperial College London, and has published groundbreaking research on emergency cardiac interventions." "If his qualifications are legitimate," Dr. Lee interjected, "why was he working as a cleaner?" I spoke for the first time since entering the room. "Because every application I submitted was rejected without interview. When I called to inquire, I was told my foreign credentials might not meet Korean standards." The room fell uncomfortably silent. Dr. Park Jung-hee continued reading through my application materials, her expression growing more troubled with each page. "Dr. Mitchell's recommendation letter describes you as one of the most gifted cardiac specialists she's worked with," she said slowly. "She states that your diagnostic skills and emergency response capabilities are exceptional by any international standard." "International standards that apparently don't apply here," Dr. Kim added pointedly. Dr. Lee shifted uncomfortably. "Our hiring processes follow strict protocols." "Protocols that seem to work differently for different applicants," Dr. Kim interrupted, pulling out another set of documents. "I did some research. In the past 5 years, this hospital has hired 17 physicians with foreign credentials. 15 were from the United States or Europe. 2 were from Japan." The implication hung heavy in the air. Board member Dr. Yoon Mi-jin leaned forward, her voice careful but pointed. "And Dr. Okafor's qualifications compared to these other hires?" "Superior to most," Dr. Kim answered immediately. "His experience, publications, and recommendations exceed the majority of our current attending staff." I watched the board members exchange glances, seeing their discomfort as they realized the implications of the pattern Dr. Kim had uncovered. The patient's family has requested to meet Dr. Okafor, Dr. Park Jung-hee said quietly. They want to thank him personally. The media is calling him a hero. Which creates a public relations problem, Dr. Lee added quickly. How do we explain that our hero is actually unqualified to practice medicine in Korea? Maybe the problem isn't explaining why he's unqualified, Dr. Kim suggested. Maybe the problem is explaining why we thought he was. Dr. Yoon Mi-jin closed the application folder she'd been reviewing. Dr. Kim, what exactly are you proposing? I'm proposing we do what we should have done 3 years ago. Review Dr. Okafor's credentials properly, conduct a fair assessment, and when he passes, offer him a position appropriate to his qualifications. And if the medical board questions our licensing decision, Dr. Lee asked, then we show them the same documents I'm showing you, Dr. Kim replied. We demonstrate that we hired the best available candidate based on merit, not geography. I spoke up again, my voice steady but carrying emotion I'd kept contained for years. I didn't apply for sympathy or special consideration. I applied because I'm a good doctor who wants to help people. Last night proved that excellence doesn't have a nationality. Dr. Park Jung-hee stood up, gathering the application materials. I motioned for an immediate credential review committee to assess Dr. Okafor's qualifications. Seconded. Dr. Yoon Mi-jin agreed, and I further motioned that we review our hiring protocols to ensure we're not inadvertently discriminating against qualified candidates. Dr. Lee looked around the room, realizing the tide had turned against him. The board will need to vote. All in favor? Dr. Park Jung-hee interrupted. 7 hands rose around the table. Dr. Lee sat with his hands folded, isolated in his opposition. Motion carried, Dr. Park Jung-hee announced. Dr. Okafor, we'll need you to undergo a competency evaluation, but given your credentials and last night's demonstration, I suspect you'll be wearing different scrubs very soon. 6 months later, I walked through the same emergency room where everything had changed, but now wearing the navy blue scrubs of an attending physician. The night shift buzzed with its usual controlled energy, but the atmosphere felt different, more open, more collaborative. Dr. Okafor, Nurse Park called out, incoming cardiac emergency, ETA 5 minutes. On my way, I replied, then turned to the resident beside me. Dr. Choi, let's see what you remember about tension pneumothorax diagnosis. Dr. Choi, who had been promoted after Dr. Lee's quiet resignation, grinned. Look for tracheal deviation, distended neck veins, and unilateral chest movement. Good. And what's our priority? Save the life first, handle the paperwork second. Dr. Kim approached from the other end of the hallway, pulling on his surgical gloves. Room for one more on this case? Always room for good colleagues, I replied, and meant it. As we walked toward the emergency bay together, Korean doctor and Nigerian doctor, colleagues in every sense, I thought about that night 6 months ago when everything changed. Not just for me, but for an entire institution that had been forced to examine its own assumptions. The hospital had since implemented new hiring protocols, established mentorship programs for international physicians, and created pathways for credential recognition that focused on competence over geography. Other medical institutions across Seoul had begun adopting similar changes. You know, Dr. Kim said as we approached the patient, I learned something important that night. You saved Mr. Park's life. What's that? That the best medicine happens when we see people for who they really are, not who we assume them to be. The ambulance doors burst open and we rushed forward to receive our patient. Another emergency, another chance to save a life, another opportunity to prove that excellence and compassion recognize no borders. As we worked together, Korean hands and Nigerian hands, different training but shared purpose, I realized that changing one hospital's heart was just the beginning. Real transformation happens one person, one assumption, one open mind at a time. The patient stabilized under our combined care. Another family spared devastating news. Another life saved by seeing beyond surface assumptions to the healing potential that exists in every dedicated human heart.